Hey guys, it's Lou again from Country Club Comics. So today we're going to be looking at part 2 of the famous first edition treasuries. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Okay, so today we're going to look at the other 5 of the 10 famous first edition treasuries that DC put out. All of them came out in the 70s. One of them came out in 2020. We'll talk about that at the end of the video. But this first one, this is F6. So again, the numbering is kind of weird. Sometimes it's F-, other times it's C-. But for this purpose, it's F-6. This is Wonder Woman #1. Now, I got to say, and I think I mentioned this in the last video, I never really read a lot of the Wonder Woman, per se. Even the treasuries, I did read through them. But if we're looking at covers, I thought this cover worked so well. And I guess it was the combination of the border color and the yellow on the Wonder Woman 1. It just worked so well. So I was not a fan of the Wonder Woman comic books. Never really read them too much, but these treasuries I went through. And the thing with the treasuries was, because it was the old comics being reprinted, I was never a fan of the art, and I mentioned that in the last video. There was something about it that just it took me out of the story. It was they were dark, heavy lines for tracing, or for penciling rather, and even when there were these pink panels that could have really popped, for some reason they put these shading, this dark black shading within those panels, so it really sort of claustrophobitized, that's not a word, the image. And to me, it just took me out of it completely. And if you look at the characters, whether it was Wonder Woman or one of the Amazons or a gangster, whatever, they had very rounded images, and it kind of just took me out of it completely. But we get to see the origin of Wonder Woman again. Now, when I read this as a kid, I see this little doll or this little baby jumping into the mother. I don't know if I read every word. I just assumed that was a baby, not a clay sculpture that came to life. Didn't realize that, honestly, until I saw the Gal Gadot movie and she explains it somewhat. And that Wonder Woman was made from clay, from Zeus, I don't know, whatever the case may be. But it sort of makes sense that it really came from this origin that they established back in the 30s, which is kind of cool, or 40s. Whatever it was back then. And the thing is, like I said, I didn't read Wonder Woman comics, so had I not had the treasuries to at least get this much information in my head, I never would have touched Wonder Woman. Didn't sound right. I never would have read Wonder Woman comics. So that's really the point of this video, is that these treasuries brought me into this world that I really never would have ventured into. And the treasuries that we're talking about today are all perfect examples of how they got me into reading about characters that I never would have read on my own. Really kind of cool. And this is next one's the example. So next we have F7, All-Star Comics. Look at this cover. This is a cover, okay? You have the Atom, you have Sandman, you have the Spectre, you have the Flash, the most recognizable, I think, from this group, arguably. You have Hawkman, Dr. Fate. I love Dr. Fate in Black Adam. I don't like how his character ended. I won't say, I won't spoil it for anybody, but I hope he's reused in some capacity down the line, just because he's got such an awesome costume. And Pierce Brosnan was fantastic. Then you have Green Lantern, and this is a costume, by the way, with Green Lantern and with Sandman. If you think about it, these are outstanding costumes, and it's great to see them in their true context. And then you have Hourman. Hourman has that black and yellow costume, kind of cool. All right, but these characters were amazing. Now, I read all these stories, but there was one story here that really, really intrigued me. It was the Spectre story. So in this quick synopsis, there's this statue that comes to life. Now, when you're walking, in a city or an older city, you see have these big columns and there are gargoyles and things on it. Okay, kind of like that. This gargoyle comes to life, and for some reason, he has to murder somebody. Because if he doesn't murder somebody, he's not satisfied, and I don't know what happens to him. He gets very frustrated. So he of all the people he's going to attack, he attacks the Spectre in his human form. And he's about to kill him, and Spectre goes, no, that's not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And they get into an argument, they get into a fight. You're not going to stop me, or I'm going to stop you. But then they decide on a challenge. So the monster named that's right, O-O-M, says, okay, the first person to get the red moonstone of Isgardal, yes, Isgardal, wins the contest. The loser has to leave Earth forever. Spectre agrees. So they go through this battle, and they go to get this red moonstone. And of course, long story short, the Spectre wins. But does not want to honor the bargain. So what does Spectre do? Spectre forces him back up onto that column to become to act as a statue, to go back to being a statue, but he removes his spirit. Now think of how creepy that is. So he forces him to go back up on the column, and he removes the creature's spirit. So now he's sort of frozen in time as this stone structure against the column. To me, that's damn creepy. It really is. But it was so cool to read that as a kid. It was really excellent. Okay. Next. Very familiar character. We have Flash. This is F8, Flash Comics #1. I'm not really a fan of this cover. I know it's a very famous cover, obviously, and when you see it, you sort of, the dollar signs go off in your head. I was never really a true fan of this this cover. Or the artwork in this one, too. I felt it was too thin. It's funny, because the Wonder Woman I felt was too thick. The Flash artwork I felt was too thin, too streamlined. Maybe that's part of the deal with making somebody who's super fast. I don't know. But never really resonated with me. But I did read these as well. And I loved, whether it was golden or modern, doesn't matter. I loved the helmet on Jay Garrick. And that was this Flash, Jay Garrick. And they go over his origin. And the origin is he's in his lab. He does work in a crime lab. And he's surrounded by these chemicals. And he decides, of course, why not? This is a perfect place to just stop and have a cigarette, which is what he does. So he's smoking. He leans against the chemicals. They spill over. They fill the room. He collapses on the floor. And the smoke just envelops him, and the chemicals go into his body. Wakes up in a hospital, and apparently he has all these powers of the Flash, which is kind of an interesting origin. But I'm not sure it's very exciting. I think they did a really good job in the 2 TV shows, an accident where they sort of, possible. What's that word? Zhuzhed it up a little bit. With lightning bolts instead of smoking. It was, I think that was a little bit better. So he gets this new godlike power. And of course, like a true superhero, what's the first thing he does? You guessed it. Scores a touchdown. See, here's the thing. They made most of this story, him trying to get a date with this girl, Joan. And ultimately, that's what happens. So if you think about it, he becomes the Flash to get a date with this girl, Joan. And she only goes out with him afterwards when he's like the superstar. I don't know what team was he on. He worked for a crime lab. Why was he even playing football? I don't even know. I have no idea. But he gets touchdowns. Who knows? All right. Now, also in this comic, there are 3 other characters. There's Johnny Thunder, kind of like Jimmy Olsen, who likes to fight. Okay. And there's Cliff Cornwall. Now, the name alone kind of turns me off. Cliff is a cool name. I like the name Cliff. But Cornwall? Cliff Cornwall? I mean, there's some Celtic origin there, but, when you're 9 years old or 10 years old reading these books, I'm not sure that, Celtic origin is all it's cracked up to be, or has any interest at all to me. But then there's also the whip. Okay? The whip.
Oh, hey, can I get some of that pie and Cool Whip?
What did you say?
We can't have pie without Cool Whip.
That's not how you're supposed to say it. You said it weird.
Is, without a doubt, it's a ripoff of Zorro. I love everything Zorro. I'm a Zorro fan. One of my favorite movies is The Mark of Zorro from 1940 with Tyrone Power and Linda Darnell. Oh, Linda Darnell. Great movie. If you have not watched it and you can brave through a black and white movie, it is well worth the watch. It's a true superhero film in a time of non-superhero films. It's really, really well done. But this is obviously a Zorro rendition. Here's the thing, though. I read this, and it's the character's named El Castigo, and of course he defends the Caballeros, just like Zorro did. There's a panel on this that I never understood as a kid, and I wanted to share with you. So here's the panel, and El Castigo says, "Wretched horseman, ship." So as a kid, 9 years old, I'm reading this and I'm like, I know what wretched means. I know what a horseman is. Whose ship? Who's he talking to? Wretched horseman, ship. This is the way the words were divided. So when you're a kid, you just sort of digitalize these things in your head and you move on to the next image, which I did. I didn't care. It wasn't until years later when I was going through this book that I realized it's wretched horsemanship. And I actually had a laugh about that. But as a kid, they were separated. So I just assumed that there was some character named Ship. There was nobody named Ship. It was just the end of the word horsemanship. I just thought that was funny. So now for the next one, we go back to the numbering system that began with C. And this is C61, Superman number 1. This is, I gotta say, this was like the latest one, I guess, of the famous first editions. It wasn't in that typical style with the dark border. This was a little bit different. It did have the picture of Superman number 1 on the cover, but it also had blurbs on the side where the other ones didn't have that. The other ones may have had pictures of characters, but it was not in that traditional famous first edition framework. But I love this book. This is a great book. It really is. And there's something here that really answers a question I've been asking for many, many years. And I even asked it in the last video. There were some responses online about this. My question was always, why or how does Superman have all of these muscles and is ripped all the time, like always in fantastic shape? To build those muscles, you obviously have to work out and challenge yourself with struggle to lift weights, right? And that's what builds the muscle. What does Superman possibly lift that can give him a challenge? What is he? He's out, bench pressing planets all day? No. He looked like this from day one, and I always wondered, how is that possible? How come he just doesn't have a normal body? The answer might be here. And I read this as a kid, but I never put two and two together. So here's a little caption from this full-page origin page that was in the book. And it reads, here we go. Superman came to Earth from the planet Krypton, whose inhabitants had evolved after millions of years. Millions of years, the inhabitants evolved to physical perfection. So if physical perfection means that all Kryptonians look as fit and ripped as Superman, then the conversation's over. Superman looks the way he does because of genetics, not because of training. So Superman's look is nature over nurture. For me, that's enough to answer the question and move on to enjoy the character further. And that was kind of a relief, because it always bothered me that he always looked so ripped. But this is the result of him coming from Krypton, where they were at their physical perfection. Now, every iteration we've had of Krypton in the movies doesn't show this. They're in regular shape, they're in decent shape, but they're not at that physical perfection stage. And Krypton was supposed to be at physical perfection and mental perfection, like in intellectual perfection. They were at the end of their rope when it came to what they had to learn. They were at the end. rightly so, they explode. But that could very well be the reason why Superman looks the way he does. At least I'm going with that. But overall, this Treasury is just beautiful. The artwork in it, not the old artwork, the new artwork. If you look at the inside covers, the back covers, every page, to me, can be a pinup. It's gorgeous. There are some examples here. So it's a great book. Check it out if you can. This copy, by the way, is the harder to find Whitman variant. I think it has a slightly greater value, but it doesn't really matter. And lastly, this is the last of the famous firsts. This book was published in 2020, and they did continue the numbering with C63. And this was More Fun Comics #1 now, or New More Fun #1. I bought this because it really did fit in, at least aesthetically, with the other books. They were very religious. They were very faithful to the trade dress and the border, reminiscent of Detective 27, that famous first edition, with that nice silver tone to it, the black outline. It did reprint DC's first published book, which is kind of cool. I guess, of all the books in this series, this is probably the one that deserved to be printed the most. This is the famous first of DC entirely. Here's the thing, though. It's not my favorite. I'm not a fan of this book. First of all, it's sealed. I'm not even going to open it because, first of all, it's bigger than the other books. Now, Treasuries are large as they are. This is even larger than the Treasuries that we have. So it's hard to store. I have all my Treasuries on the shelf. This I have to put on the side to fit in because it won't fit in the shelf. Kind of annoying. It's a hardcover, so a lot of that charm is lost when you don't have that soft cover. I don't know, maybe it's just me. But when you have the hardcover, it's more like a book, not like a comic, right? And I do have hardcover versions of some of these, but I prefer the soft covers. And lastly, I really thought this would include like the Spectre, Dr. Fate, Green Arrow, Aquaman, Superboy. It doesn't. It's truly just a reprint of that first issue. And it has essays in it. That's why I didn't open it. I just read about it, like what's inside. Essays, I guess, from writers or historians or whatever. And that's it. That's it. So it's a decent book. If I had to choose again, would I buy it to put into this collection? No. Because as much as it fits, it doesn't fit. And it doesn't have the charm of those early ones. So listen, this is it. Hope you enjoyed this video. There will be more videos of the limited collector's editions and all new and the Marvel Treasuries. I got to tell you though, if you guys are looking to buy these books, start looking around because the prices of these, and I was blown away when I started looking these up, prices are going up. Like there's that one book, Superman versus Muhammad Ali. I mean, I saw somebody trying to sell it for $400, and this wasn't like the signed version. This was just a regular version. I don't think they're worth that much, but hey, I'm not the market, But I will be going over books like that, books like Superman versus Spider-Man, which was just a great treasury and a great collaboration between Marvel and DC. And there are so many more we're going to go over. So I hope you continue this journey with me through the limited collector's editions. Hope you enjoyed this. Please like, comment, subscribe if you can, if you enjoy it. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao.